Meanwhile, there is the race policy that will undoubtedly follow this administration. We've already seen it implemented at the local level. The Biden administration has repeatedly suggested that equity is to guide all of its decisions. As we have talked about at length on this program, when folks on the left say equity, they do not mean equality. What they mean is that any program that does not achieve equal outcome on the basis of group, any program that does not achieve that is considered racist. And to be anti-racist, whenever you see somebody saying, I'm doing the work, I've become an anti-racist, it doesn't mean I've become a not racist. It means I have become a person who wants to tear down all existing structures of power, castigating them as systemically discriminatory, right? That's what it means. So this is the stuff that the Biden administration has been pushing. They've been pushing it in vaccine policy. They've been pushing it in educational policy. They've been pushing it in economic policy, in environmental policy. They literally said that Ibram X. Kendi's idea of how the world should work is the way they are going to govern, which is scary as all hell. Because first of all, in many cases, it is violative of the basic principle of the Civil Rights Act of 1965, which is that people ought not be treated on the basis of group or race. They ought to be treated instead on the basis of their individual identity. Instead, this is not what is happening, and we are seeing it crammed down in our educational system primarily. So Christopher Rufo, who writes for City Journal, and he is the director of a group called Discovery, the Center on Wealth and Poverty at Discovery Institute. So he has been keeping track of the woke equity politics that is now being mainlined into our educational system. So take a gander at this. Chris Rufo tweets out, the principal of East Side Community School in New York sent white parents a tool for action. It tells them they must become white traitors and then advocate for full white abolition. Okay, this is nuts. So let's take a look at this for just a second, because while the Biden administration, I keep mixing them up because this is just Obama administration part 3, because the Biden administration has embraced the basic equity playbook here, this is what they mean. They haven't gone all the way yet, but they will. Don't worry. We're very, very early on. So they have been distributing at the school the 8 white identities by a person named Barnor Hess. And the 8 white identities stretch from white supremacist in the red to white abolitionist in the green. They say there is a regime of whiteness, and there are action-oriented white identities. People who identify with whiteness are one of these. It's about time we build an ethnography of whiteness, since white people have been the ones writing about and governing others. Okay, what the hell does any of that mean? Well, let's get a little more specific. Here are the 8 white identities, according to Barnor Hess. Okay, again, this is being taught now at schools in New York. And by the way, at schools that are liberal in LA, same kind of thing. You're going to see this brought into public education with a vengeance over the course of the next few years. Okay, that's the prediction. Here are the 8 white identities, according to Barnor Hess. He says, 1, white supremacists, right? These are the worst people. And this is what all of American society is. Clearly marked white society that preserves, names, and values white superiority. That makes it, you're a white supremacist, okay? 2nd, white voyeurism. Wouldn't challenge a white supremacist, desires non-whiteness because it's interesting and pleasurable, seeks to control the consumption and appropriation of non-whiteness, fascination with culture. Example, consuming black culture without the burden of blackness. So if you listen to rap, but you're white, this means that you're probably a white voyeurist. You're a white voyeur, right? You're not a white supremacist, but you're kind of white supremacist adjacent. Because you're like a white supremacist in that you like all the structures of power, but you also like listening to rap music. Then there's white privilege. Maybe you critique supremacy, but a deep investment in questions of fairness and equality under normalization of whiteness and the white rule, sworn goal of diversity. So now, if you say that you like diversity, but you also believe in things like fairness and equality on an individual level, this means that you are suffering from white privilege. Because of course, the entire system is white. And so if you say that you want everybody to be treated equally on an individual level, this means you're upholding a system that has been supremacist in the past and is supremacist today. So you're actually just privilege. Okay, then 4th level. This is all cult crap, by the way. This is just cultic nonsense. 4th level. Okay, now we are rising. So we went from the worst and we're moving toward the best. Get ready for it, gang. 4th, white benefit. You're sympathetic to a set of issues, but only privately. You won't speak or act in solidarity publicly because benefiting through whiteness in public. Some people of color are in this category as well. So this would be like Candace Owens. So if you're a black person, but you don't speak in or act in solidarity with whiteness in public, or against whiteness in public, this means that you're of white benefit. Actually, according to these folks, Candace is probably a white supremacist, maybe a white voyeurist. Okay, same thing for Shelby Steele. A white benefit person is a person who is actually a Black Lives Matter sympathizer, but doesn't speak out very loudly about it. Then there's white confessional. Okay, white confessional is some exposure of whiteness takes place, but as a way of being accountable to people of color after. You're seeking validation from people of color. Okay, so this is all the people who marched in the Black Lives Matter protest but are white, right? Who posted a black square on Instagram. You're a white confessional because you can see your own whiteness, but you're only seeking validation from people of color. Now, you might think to yourself, okay, like that should be about as radical as it gets here. You're basically saying that the system, you're conceding all the points. Don't worry, there's more. White critical. Now we're getting to the people we're reaching saintly levels of anti-whiteness. White critical. You take on board critiques of whiteness and invest in exposing or marking the white regime. You refuse to be complicit with the regime. Whiteness speaking back to whiteness. This is white people telling other white people that they are too white. Because whitey make white white. Make white white. Okay, finally, you could be a white traitor. You actively refuse complicity. You name what is going on. Your intention is to subvert white authority and tell the truth at whatever cost. You need them to dismantle institutions. And finally, you're a white abolitionist. This is like the highest level. You have cleansed yourself of all sin. You have purged yourself. You're full Robin DiAngelo. White abolitionist. You change institutions. You dismantle whiteness. You don't allow whiteness to reassert itself. But by the way, what's amazing about this is that you're still the one in power, right? You're the white person who's in power, and you're acting on behalf of people of color. You are now a white abolitionist. Okay, this is the crap they are teaching to school children. It's racist nonsense. There should be lawsuits on the basis of this. But get ready. This sort of stuff is going to be mainlined into American politics. Because as soon as you start using the term equity, this is where it's going. We all know this is where it is going. Did you know that every like on this video creates one additional leftist tier? Don't ask me why. That's called science. To take advantage of this amazing opportunity, hit the like button.